So as I said to you in the text earlier, that I was kind of surprised about the outcome, and you said you were not.
No, I wasn't surprised.
So tell us why you were so confident about the outcome of this trial.
Well, I mean, unlike many police-involved cases, this case had a clear video, it had multiple angles, and you could clearly see that no one could mistake a taser for a gun. So, you know, her lawyers put up a willing fight, but the law in Minnesota was clear. And I think this jury went through the evidence very thoroughly. They made their decision on the second-degree charge a couple of days ago, and this morning they made a decision on they made a decision on a third-degree charge a few days ago, and in the second-degree charge this morning. And I think it was quite clear that she violated that statute and that they proven it beyond a reasonable doubt. So, you know, I heard a lot of the pundits, I heard a lot of the media consternation, but, you know, having been a trial attorney for 17 years, you know, you can't argue against evidence and then applying the evidence to the law. And when you do that, you get a just verdict, which is exactly what you got in this case. So that's why I was not shocked by the verdict. I was satisfied. I do believe they probably could have charged her with murder and made that case stick. But, you know, it's one more case of accountability, and this is what it's going to take to rebuild trust in the system. You can't just have conversations. You have to have action, and action that leads to accountability, like this conviction of Kim Potter.
Well, I was very surprised, and not so much because of the evidence, but more because of what the jury sometimes comes back with. I mean, you and I have been a part of a lot of things that's happened in this area where it didn't really turn out to be just. So that's kind of why I was vacillating as it relates to where it might go. You working on so many high-profile cases here in the metro area. Tell us your thoughts about how do you think the police are going to react to this verdict?
I'm not quite sure how the police are going to react. I really don't care. The issue is this: they are not the law. They are law enforcement. My concern is how a prosecutor is going to react to this. This shows, as one of the fourth or fifth cases that we've seen nationally, that you can get convictions in these cases. So it's not really about how the police respond. It's about how the prosecutors and the judges respond, because they are the third co-equal branch, which are charged with making sure the law is followed, it's interpreted. So I'm not really concerned about the executive branch. I'm more concerned about the judicial branch. And I think this sends a message to prosecutors around the country that they need to start putting these cases up to grand juries and to trial juries, and they will get verdicts that speak the truth. There's no longer a blue wall of silence, a veil of protection has been stripped away, and it's time to bring justice to these families. You brought up in Atlanta a number of cases, you know, Jimmy Atchison case, Oscar Kane's case, Veltavius Griggs, and Vincent Truitt are just a few of the cases in Atlanta that are similar to DAUNTE Wright's case in Minnesota. And so it's time for prosecutors in the metro area to do the same thing that Keith Ellison has done in 2 high-profile cases now. And so I believe that it's time to start trying these cases the same way they try regular citizens' cases, and I think you will get the same result.
How do you think this verdict is going to affect some of the cases that you have on docket moving forward? How do you think it's going to help?
I think it's going to help our argument to many of the prosecutors that they can make these cases. You know, many prosecutors don't want to put cases up because they don't believe they'll get a conviction. Well, we've shown over and over again that you can get convictions in these cases. So that excuse has been removed. My hope in the 97 cases that are currently pending in Metro Atlanta, particularly in Fulton County, that the district attorney will proceed on those cases. Jamarian Robinson, Jimmy Atchison, Oscar Kane, Rayshard Brooks, just to name a few. And this case stands for the proposition that it's time. You know, 2020 was Freedom Summer. We've seen now 2 convictions, 3 convictions because of Freedom Summer cases. It's time for all of those prosecutors who saw all of those civilians in the street and then ultimately that marched to the polls to make good on their promises to those civilians that we will have justice and accountability, not only for ordinary people, but for law enforcement as well.
You brought up a case that comes to mind, Rayshard Brooks.
Yes.
We were all on the front lines watching what was going on with that case. My concern when I was talking about law enforcement is the position that Atlanta PD took as related to a lot of the language that was against them during the time of that shooting. And then their attitude was, well, if you guys don't believe in us, then we're not going to cover, we're not going to come out, we're going to call in sick, all of the stuff that they did. That is kind of where my thought process is as it relates to how law enforcement might perceive this person.
But here's the thing, and you know, as a trial attorney, a criminal defense attorney, and someone who's worked in the prosecutor's office before, again, you know, the court system is charged with interpreting the law. Police are supposed to just bring the people to the system so we can mete out justice as the law prescribes. You know, I was very disheartened that people didn't call out the blue flu for exactly what it is. It was law enforcement not doing their job. We've not seen a rise in crime because of anything other than the blue flu. And now we have to have politicians that have the courage to realize that no one is above the law and that it hurts a little bit for people to be held accountable. But the only ones that were complaining were the ones that needed to be held accountable. What I'm saying is there are a lot of great law enforcement officers who do their job day in and day out, regardless of the changing political climate. And they will continue to do their job day in, day out. The ones that are complaining didn't need to be a part of the system from the beginning, because if you're doing your job, you're not doing anything that's illegal, you're not doing anything that will cause scrutiny on your profession, then you have nothing to worry about. This is not a war on police. It's not a war on law enforcement. This is a demand for accountability for unlawful killings. And so, you know, I think that especially in Atlanta, if they start holding these officers accountable, the ones that are violating the public trust, you will see a higher standard of officer on the street. And you will see us get back to the point where people truly trust law enforcement and that there's not this uneasiness. You know, I've been saying for a long time, you know, ever since Mike Brown, that we need to implement community-oriented policing. We need to have police accountability. Many people still want to have conversations. The days of conversations are over. People need to be held accountable. People like KiIM Potter, people like Derek Chauvin, people like the officer that killed Anthony Hill here locally need to be held accountable. And once you see that accountability, you start seeing a reduction in the number of police-involved killings. Since there has not been as much accountability in Georgia, we have now passed the number of police-involved shootings from 2020. We are now at 97 police-involved encounters, according to the GBI, which surpassed the 2020 number. If we don't have accountability, it's going to continue to get higher. We're going to continue to have problems. We're going to continue to have protests.
Are any of your cases coming to trial anytime in the near future?
Currently not. We're still waiting on indictments. Of course, the Jamarian Robinson case was indicted, and now they're trying to move that case to federal court. And there are still 96 other cases that need to be addressed. The Vincent Truitt case, of course, that district attorney did not present it to a criminal grand jury. So that case is currently needs to be reopened. So there are several cases that need to get moving. The Rayshard Brooks case has been transferred to another district attorney who was still waiting on that case. So there are many cases that I'm an activist for or an attorney for that need to move forward. I'm hopeful that the KiIM Potter decision will be the impetus to local prosecutors pushing forward on these cases.
Well, it certainly seems to be a shift, if not in the legal universe, the universe in general, because a lot of these cases that I thought were going to go the other way actually did not. So I'm pleasantly surprised to see that. And definitely because of the good work of attorneys like you that are always on the forefront getting things done. We appreciate you.
Well, I appreciate you guys covering it. And I must not take full credit for this. We have brothers like Ben Crump and Lee Merritt and Chris Stewart and Miley Davis and others that are on the front lines as well in the legal community. So we're going to continue to push forward and we're going to make sure in the spirit of Thurgood, in the spirit of Fred Gray and other great civil rights lawyers of the past to make sure that the Constitution means what it says on paper for everybody, including those that are sworn to protect and serve. So we're going to continue to do this and hopefully we can get some justice.
Well, hey, it sounds like we have gotten some thus far. And again, we appreciate you. Happy holidays to you and your family, and we'll see you on the other side.
All right, brother. Thank you for having me on the platform.